I have been using a metaphor that every one of us is like a block of building. We have first and second and third and quite a many floors, and also some basement layers. But usually we are allowed to talk only the reasoning and then maybe imagination. And all the upper floors have been kind of amputated. And those are the creative dimensions we all have. And currently, I think that it's kind of crime against humanity to exclude those.
Welcome to Purposeful Empathy, a show that is dedicated to amplifying the voices of people from across the globe who understand the world needs more empathy and are doing something about it. This season includes 25 incredible episodes devoted to the inner development goals. Based on the science of personal transformation, the IDG framework represents 23 skills needed for today's world. And of course, empathy is one of them. You won't want to miss a single episode, so hit the subscribe button now. Thanks for watching and enjoy the show. Welcome to a new episode of Purposeful Empathy. Today I am joined by Asta Raami, an intuition researcher, educator, and author who has dedicated her career to exploring the fascinating role of intuition in creative processes and visionary innovations. With a Doctor of Arts degree from Aalto University Media Lab Helsinki, where she defended her groundbreaking PhD thesis on intuition in creativity, Asta brings a wealth of academic and practical experience. Over her 15 years in academia, Asta has held various teaching and R&D roles, focusing on how intuition can be harnessed as a powerful tool for radical innovations. She has also authored several thought-provoking books on these topics, including Intuition Unleashed, on the application and development of intuition in the creative processes. I've invited Asta to join this special edition of Purposeful Empathy, where we're focusing on the IDGs, the Inner Development Goals. And I've invited her to speak about creativity, one of the 23 skills of the IDG framework. Welcome to the show, Asta.
Thank you, Anita. So happy to be here with you.
And we met just a few weeks ago in Helsinki, and I think I'll speak for myself, but I developed an immediate girl crush, as they call it in North America. And it's a delight to see you again, and thank you for making the time.
Yeah, that was a lovely meeting.
Yes, indeed, and only the beginning, I believe. So if I read from the Inner Development Goal Framework, they refer to creativity as the ability to generate and develop original ideas, innovate, and be willing to disrupt conventional patterns. So I know you just came from sort of a gathering of inventors, and I know we're going to get there. So just everybody hang tight, because this is going to be a conversation that will unfold like the beauty of a flower. I want to backtrack to the origin story. I want to really understand. You are an expert on intuition, innovation, creativity. Where did this all begin? Why? Why have you been focused on this?
Actually, I worked for 15 years in the university, and most of that time I was coaching design students to develop their internal creative process. At that time, it was the beginning of 2003. There were a lot of methods that how you can, put different hats or brainstorm or different type of methods that comes from outwards. But there wasn't any how to support your internal, highly personal system. So I started to do that. And then I noticed that often those most talented students, and talented in that sense that they got big awards, they were using a lot of intuition. But at the same time, there wasn't any concepts or words, and intuition was mainly invisible. And that created a lot of internal pain, because it felt like some part of you have to amputate, that it's not existing. So I thought that that, well, there's something we are not ready to look for. And these people were reporting that, you know, Asta, this work is so hard that I'm pondering every day that I'll quit and change to another profession. And I thought, how come? These are the most talented students. And to make long story short, it was due to the lack of these terms and concepts of intuition and how they could connect to their internal brilliance. And then I got funding to make PhD on studying intuition in creative processes. And then it has gone on and on and on and on, because the deeper you dig, the more fascinating it becomes.
So what did your thesis unveil to you? What did you discover while doing your PhD research that, and you say we can keep going deeper, which we will do in this conversation, but what did you learn through your PhD and what did you present to the world?
Yeah, often we think that intuition is a popping idea or incoming thought or some sort of revelation that appears when it appears. But actually, it's a two-way channel. And what I've understood that empathy is as well two-way channel. That if you can get ideas or insights through intuitive faculties, you can also acquire information through that. And that's essential if you are making problem solving or inventing ideas or making design or whatever, acquiring information. And these processes where you are acquiring information, you are discerning what's relevant, what's useful, what's reliable. These are not just skills that are innate, but those are skills you can practice and learn. And as you say that I'm expert on intuition, I would say that we all are experts on intuition, but we just need to talk more about it. Because often I hear that people are telling that, yeah, I trust my intuition and I don't trust my intuition, or intuition is relevant, or intuition is not reliable. I always say that don't trust intuition, develop your discernment skill and then integrate it with conscious reasoning. So it's a huge area we are kind of ignoring or belittling currently. And therefore we need more speech about empathy and intuition.
Totally agree with you. So intuition, is that an embodied feeling? Intuition, are you suggesting, because you said let's marry it with the cognition and the rational and the practical, but are you suggesting that intuition is something that we feel physically, or is it emotive, or what are the characteristics of intuition?
Okay, so since 1970s, we have this theoretical model of human thinking that is called System 1 and System 2. Maybe some of you have heard about this. Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow. And it was before him, but he has made it public or what's the word? Popular. Sorry, popular. So in human thinking, we have two systems. System 1 is intuition and System 2 is conscious reasoning. And these are working together all the time. And conscious reasoning is that I know I'm thinking this thought. And intuition is everything else. It's like an umbrella. And there are different knowledge bases, different processes, and different outcomes. But now I'm talking only about the human thinking. Then we have emotions that are giving us a lot of information. We have body, which is giving us a lot of information. We have environment, and we handle the signals through our cognition. And when considering intuition, we also have some sort of superconscious or field or higher knowledge, or however you want to label it. And all of these forms of knowing are intertwined. And the system one is benefiting all of these. It's benefiting the signals from the environment, from the body, from emotions, from mind, from something we don't know. So intuition is our pathway to a various type of information and knowledge. But I would say that the most important thing is the process of intuiting, and it's based on perception. What do you perceive from your body? Goosebumps or gut feelings, or maybe flashing ideas or whatever. These are usually highly personal. And then the other important component is to discern what is relevant, what is meaningful. And little by little, by perceiving more, maybe if you're totally in your head, you start to recognize that, oh, I have body, and there's some sort of information it gives to me. So you can widen your perception to new areas, or then you can discern in a more detailed way that, oh, I have different sort of sensations in my body, and depending where I have the sensation, it's telling me something different.
So I'm sensing that some of the ways that we can develop our intuition is to have greater self-awareness of our own physical system, maybe the environment, but also this idea of discernment. So how do we become better? What are the practices to develop those kinds of skills on our way to developing intuition?
Oh, there are many. And you know, the most fascinating thing is that I have been interviewing a lot of inventors, and nobody has been gone to even single intuition development course. They're all self-taught. So I would say that we all have the keys into our own system if we just tune into that. So maybe one of the most brilliant and most simple method is just under our nose or in front of our nose. But we don't just recognize it because it's so simple. Ask. So when we're asking, or somebody is praying or asking, whatever, somebody is using intention, it directs our mind, and it starts to give us information. So if we're thinking about the system 1 and system 2, the system 2 is really small processor. Researchers have been counting that it can process up to 50 bits of information per second. And during 1 second time, this intuitive faculty is processing 300,000 up to 11 million bits. So it's a huge processor, and these are working together because the role of intuition is to perceive signals that might be useful for us for some reason. It may be survival, but often in everyday life, it's like that we're pondering an idea or solving a problem, and then there starts to pop up some sort of idea. So, hey, this might be a promising direction, or would it be a good idea? And so these two systems are constantly working together. And often we think just that we are rational, and we think that, well, intuition is something minor, and we can forget it or put it in the background somewhere. But actually, it's our access to surpass the current point of views and to invent unseen novelties, to solve impossible. And researchers of cognitive science, this is a very, very illustrative example. Researchers of cognitive science have been calculating that if we are buying a house, it would need a processing of 6.3 billion bits of information. And with conscious reasoning, it would take 4 years to process that information.
Right, but we've got, you know, families that go in and envision where their daughter's going to grow up, or where the baby will be born, or where the dog house will be, and so much of it is intuition. That's fascinating. And I'm a believer. I'm listening to you and I'm like, I'm loving everything you say. I wonder, there are probably some skeptics out there that maybe think that this is kind of entering the world of woo-woo. So I want to bring it back to real. You just came back from a conference full of inventors. And you've been working with inventors to understand how is it that they come up with these incredible ideas. So let's unpack some of the success stories where it's undeniable that they have used intuition to actually come up with these remarkable solutions.
Yeah, I would like to give a couple of examples from the history, because those are that type of persons that everybody know. You know, Nikola Tesla, obviously, he was a brilliant inventor. In his autobiography, he writes that he had more than 300 patents around the world. Most of them were dealing with energy or machinery. And he writes that he invented all the machines that are under his name in less than 2 months' time. Less than 2 months' time. His only difficulty was to keep in his head the inventions that were popping into his mind. And he got the inventions to his mind, and on the top of this physical reality, he saw kind of another layer where he was developing his inventions. He was using the machines for weeks, making small corrections. He didn't make any drawings, not any prototypes, but when the machines were built, they were working without any mistakes. And he tells that this is a superior way of designing when comparing to this traditional way of making drawings and prototypes and so forth. So it was like a highway of designing. Exceptional. And then we have a lot of these examples, and yet we are setting our hope to artificial intelligence without researching this kind of thinking. Another example, which is my favorite, is Barbara McClintock, who is the Nobel laureate in medicine. Actually, she's the only female in history who has undivided Nobel Prize in medicine. And she was researching genetics of corn. And her colleague in Stanford has faced a dead end while researching neurospora mold. And he contacted McClintock. And McClintock went to Stanford, and she oriented for 2 days. But she said that nothing was integrating, nothing was connected, and she started to feel anxiety. And she thought that she has promised more that she could do. So in the end, she was in agony, and she ran out of the lab. She went to sit in the bench under some big eucalyptus trees, and she was crying since she was so desperate. And then she was meditating for 20 minutes or half an hour. And then she knew that she can solve the problem, and she ran back to the lab and she saw the chromosomes, and she was working still 5 more days. And during that 1 week time, she was taking the research forward more than the whole previous group during 3 previous years. So these leaps are amazing. And you know what was the secret of Barbara McClintock? Empathy. She said that, you know, what happened under those trees was the key. Because one researcher, who is Larissa Shavinina, she has been researching thinking of these exceptional inventors and Nobel laureates. And she has found out a so-called extra cognitive layer of thinking. And it's not just one aspect, it's actually a collection of pretty simple methods these people are using. And one of them is empathy, because it allows you to surpass your own limits, to open into something new. And Barbara McClintock has been describing that when she was really researching the chromosomes and looking intensively to the microscope, she felt that she wasn't up here, she was down there with the chromosomes, and they grew and they were around her, they got bigger, and those were her friends. So her secret was empathetic sensing. And in the book, it's really fascinating, this book written by Evelyn Fox Keller. And the title is The Work and Life of Barbara McClintock. And it's feeling for the organism. She said that she felt such an empathy towards every plant that she could write an autobiography of each corn plant. And while she was looking with her eyes, she was simultaneously looking with her internal eyes. And the title is Feeling for the Organism, not thinking or analyzing or researching. So her primary way to acquire new scientific information is empathy. Isn't that mind-blowing?
I love that story. I love that story. And I think about Tesla getting 300 patents out of 2 months worth of work and doing it all in his head is quite remarkable as well. So I'm thinking if anybody's listening or watching and they're inspired by these 2 stories that you shared,
yeah.
I don't, Tesla is in a category of his own. This McClintock is her name?
McClintock.
McClintock is in a league of her own. She's a, Nobel laureate. What would you say to those who say, okay, well, I have, average or maybe just slightly above average intelligence. How can I use intuition? Can you give us some stories of inventors that you've worked with that might not be in the same league? Not to disparage them as well, but just to say, how can we make this more accessible?
Yeah, often people think that, well, these are the genius, that I'm just ordinary people, and that's not possible to me. But actually, research states the opposite. We have all access to this kind of knowing, meaning like everybody can learn to play piano, but not everybody has to be a concert pianist. And let me tell, before going to that, one more thing about McClintock, because she has verbalized so beautifully these issues. And she said that if you can't see the solution, there's something on the way, something is blocking. And actually, the blockage is you yourself. So what these people do, instead of trying to work on the problem, like gathering more information or analyzing more or collecting more data. They know that if the problem is looking impossible, working on the problem is not going to take you forward. There's something in between, and actually the obstacle is you yourself. So they start to work with themselves. They take the full responsibility that I'm preventing myself to see the solution. And that's totally opposite how we teach or how we learn. We study these methods and then we try to remember them and apply them. But what's also very typical for the inventors that I have been interviewing while they're making these exceptional inventions is that they tell that if you have a really hard problem, you actually have to stop thinking. Because if you're thinking, you can go only that far where the path is leading you. But if it looks impossible, usually the current science or current knowledge is not enough. You have to jump. So that's the point where comes the art of intuiting. It's our access to surpass the current. And I would say that to bring it in a very concrete level, that everyone, I think so, or assume that every one of us have these moments when we are getting insights or fresh ideas or solutions. For example, such a simple thing that losing a car keys. Then you trying to figure out that where did I put them? And then you start searching. And then at least I'm thinking that maybe I didn't search well and I started again. And then I think that, okay, whatever. And what happens then? Ah, there it is. So often you have to disconnect from the previous in order to allow some space for new to appear.
So that's a brilliant piece of insight on the intuitive process, to know that if you try to push for an answer, you're trying to resolve it in your brain without giving space to it, that you're going to have these blockages. I love that. Then I also think, and you tell me if I'm right, I think courage is a big part of inventing or creativity, because I imagine that some of your inventors came up with an insight that was completely contrary to whatever we know to be true in terms of science or possibility in the world today. And so they have to be courageous in the face of, that's not possible, that can't be done, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And to be tenacious in their courage. Is that also part of this?
Yeah, and I would say that, let me start the new sentence. Often, if we are talking about creativity, there comes this 3 B's, bed, bus, and bath, are mentioned to be places supporting creativity. When you're in a shower or when you're in a bath, you're relaxed and you may get fresh ideas. Or when you are driving a car or sitting in a bus and the scenery is going by, or just before going to sleep, or just when you woke up. So there are a lot of research also of needleworks. You know, you're relaxed, or going for a walk, or doing some physical exercise, or being in sauna. Here in Finland, all the people go to sauna. But what is connecting these spaces is extremely safe physical and psychic space. So you don't have to think that is somebody laughing at me, or how do I look, or there's some sort of discussion between your reasoning and intuitive faculties. And what I have found out during the few recent years is that actually it's a lot of question of psychological safety. So it's not that much courage, but more like feeling safe so I can open up to something. And these inventors I have been interviewing, they tell that, well, I have the office of the mind, and then I have the upstairs office. And in the upstairs office, nothing is impossible. They can look at the things from various perspectives, and the information is integrating. And for example, one inventor I have been interviewing a lot because he's inventing mind-blowing ideas. He's telling that he's talking about a dimension of his internal mind, that he's having a white canvas. He may wake up in the middle of night, and maybe he has been pondering a question, and then he sees this white canvas, and the information starts to appear. It may be drawing, it may be photograph, it may be text. He can look at it from multiple perspectives, but sometimes he asks questions and the canvas answers. And I was just listening that, wow, I have heard from literature, or like Nikola Tesla has been using his or describing his methods, but I have never met this kind of people. And nowadays I have been also interviewing kids and children, and you know, most of them have these internal dimensions. But we just don't talk about this. I have been using a metaphor that every one of us is like a block of building. We have first and second and third and quite a many floors, and also some basement layers. But usually we are allowed to talk only the reasoning and then maybe imagination. And all the upper floors have been kind of amputated. And those are the creative dimensions we all have. And currently, I think that it's kind of crime against humanity to exclude those. So we need more talk about empathy and intuition, because they, in many research, they correlate. And I have been wondering whether an inventor is empathetic, or whether empathy, you know, opens you to inventing and using more intuition. But I don't know, I would love to hear what you think. But I think that somehow they may have a common ground, which is the ability to surpass yourself, to forget yourself in order to access something new.
Are you asking me to answer that
Yeah,
question?
I'm asking, what do you think?
So, you know, typically empathy is considered the affect, where you feel what someone else is feeling, right? That has to do with the mirror neurons in our brain. I often use the example of you see someone stub their toe and you have a reaction, a physical sensation of wincing, or so that we don't control. Then there's the second one, which is the cognitive empathy, stepping into someone else's shoes as they're telling you a story or imagining what that's like for them. But separate from that, because those two are well known and well studied facets of empathy. When I was doing my PhD research, I came across Bowler's work, which talked about what exists as a space between two people that kind of has this magnetic, ultra
transcendental energy quality to it, where you don't know what their lived experience is. So you're not perspective taking, because you could get that wrong, because you could either project based on your own life experiences, or you could get it wrong based on your mood. So there's a lot of things that can go sideways when you're trying to be empathic. But in this case, in this energetic field, there's a resonance, there's a dialogue, there's a reciprocal thing that's happening between people that transcends the boundary of you and me, and it becomes us, and that connects people. And so I believe that that's possible. I believe that it's healing to someone to feel that kind of empathic energy, as much as it is healing for the person who is receiving, a situation that somebody is talking about. So I think that there is something that opens up between people that we can't put our finger on, that is, neurological or physiological, but has a more kind of, I'll say, spiritual dimension. And I think that that is part of the what's the word I'm looking for? It's part of the toolbox that humans have evolved over time, that has allowed us to flourish. And that we, like you say, in our culture, whether it's 300 years of Cartesian thinking, or maybe it's the capitalist world order, I don't know what it is, but is discounting that part of us, and that there's a need to really bring this up in order for us to make possible, how are we going to solve climate change problems? How are we going to solve, the inequities and inequalities that still exist in the world, when all of us are equally deserving of opportunities for a happy life and a sustainable planet? So that's my answer.
Yeah, I get goosebumps. I had a colleague while I was studying. She was a graphic designer, and then we were designing. And she always said that, well, if it's a good idea, then we can test it, whether it's a good idea. And she was looking at the hair in her hand, and if they were popping up, she said that, well, yeah, my hair test says that this is a good idea. But what do you think, that since many of these inventors report that, the ideas are there, you just need sensitivity to pick them. And there are many inventions that have been discovered simultaneously on the other side of the planet. And so I would suggest that through empathy, we can open not just between us two or between group, but somehow to some other dimensions as well, and to pick those ideas. What do you think?
Well, you make me think, and I said this just before we hit record. There's a woman that I interviewed many years ago from New Zealand, who talks about quantum empathy, and that there's a vibrational field to everything that is real in the world. Everything that's manifest has a vibration to it, and our thoughts have vibrations, and that we can actually enter a quantum field of empathy, where we have access to much more information and much more care, which I think is sort of bringing humanity to a higher order of its own ascension. Like, what can we become if we rise to those different level floors? If we go from 4th floor, 5th floor, 6th floor. And there's a famous book that I found incredibly helpful, called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And he talks about the difference between being an amateur and a pro. And he uses the example of writing, because he was an author, and he called himself an amateur author for decades before he became a pro. And he said that on the way to becoming a pro, we face hurdles that he calls resistance. And it takes many forms. It's like you're sitting down, you want to write a book, and then you decide, oh, I better reorganize my closet and color coordinate my shirts. Or maybe I need a snack, or 100 different excuses or resistance. And ultimately, the final chapters, and maybe I don't know if I'm doing, this is what my takeaway was from his book. Maybe others had different takeaways, is that essentially it was a matter of surrender to something that is much higher order. Like, what gives us breath? What allows the planet to grow plants and then 4 seasons, and it just has this intelligence that operates and is regenerative, and like, what is all of that? And he's saying that's what the artist's muse is tapping into that and just making, I don't know if it's making a conscious decision, or I think maybe surrender is the right word, where we surrender to the fact that there's more available to us if we just are open to receiving that. So,
Yeah. And that's what these inventors report, that they don't ponder and think. They ask and then they receive. So they kind of use the intuition to acquire this information from wider source. But earlier you were asking about these practical tips, and besides that, ask and you're given advice. I found out that there are two pretty nice tools to remember, and the other one is archery. Everybody knows that if you want to shoot the arrow to the goal, first you need to have the goal in order to hit it. And then you have the bow, and you are, what's the word? What's the word of you are not just throwing the arrow, but you're using the bow, and the power comes from the other direction. So often we ignore this phase of tuning into the intuition. We think that, it pops up, and then we are waiting whether it comes today or tomorrow or in 2 weeks. But you can tune into intuition by creating environments and atmosphere that supports you. And for example, gratitude is amazing tool, because it somehow shuts down the fear machinery in our thinking and immediately opens up to receiving mode and perceiving mode. But then comes the point where many people fail, and that is that you have to let go of the arrow. Otherwise, your conscious mind is feeding thoughts you already know. So you have to let go. Like when you are searching the keys, when you forget it, maybe it pops into your mind. So remembering archery is a good tool. And the other one that is really practical is traffic lights. Everybody knows that if the light is red, it's better to stop. Otherwise, it may be a disaster. And if your head is red, either you are fully in love or in agony or rage or whatever, calm down, sleep overnight, go for a walk, do whatever is good for you. Don't make decisions then if it's not urgent, because when a strong emotion is activated, the connection to our front lobe and to intuitive faculties is either tilted or biased, and then the yellow light needs weight, and usually that's the phase where we feel anxiety. Should I go or not? Is this right or not? Should I do it or that? What's correct? And we want to get rid of these negative emotions or anxiety, and to make whatever decisions so that I don't feel these emotions. But usually you should work on the emotions, because that's the edge that it's preventing you to see. So that's why Barbara McClintock went to meditate under those trees, to work on herself, to work on the personal edge. Because the magic, what then happens, that usually when these emotions fade away, when you greet them with your body or sense them or let them travel through you, through your body, what happens that usually the answer is in the front of your eyes. So during the yellow light, don't work on the problem or make whatever decision. Work with your difficult emotions. And then the green light is that those people who are already intuitive and sensitive and so forth, even if it looks ridiculous, you should somehow encourage yourself or your friend that go, because you can go, you can make a leap, you can jump. And then helping the others that are waiting after you and maybe beeping that, hey, the light is green, go, because you can. Then you need a little bit courage. So somehow realizing or understanding that there are different emotions, different phases or different stages, that intuition is differently useful in different situations.
Well, that was an amazing 101 on how to use intuition for creativity. I have just so loved this conversation. I can't believe how quickly it's flown by. My last question to all of my guests on this show is if you can think of a moment in your life when you were on the receiving end of empathy and what that meant for you.
I think the best situations have been with my kids and with my dog. But what was exceptional is that I felt that receiving empathy from an animal was a situation that I never thought is possible. So actually, with a dog, I can learn how to love myself. And therefore, I didn't even, before I had the dog, because I'm more a cat person, I didn't even imagine a situation that a dog is teaching me something so important. So it somehow changed my perspective in totally.
Love that. And all the dog lovers who are watching and listening will love that too. Asta, thank you so much for the work you do. I do look forward to carrying on the conversation with you, because I would like to find ways for our two worlds to collide, and any excuse to come back to Helsinki. Thank you all.
Lovely time. Yeah, lovely time, Anita.
Thank you for watching and listening, and we'll see you next week at Purposeful Empathy.
If you know someone who'd benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Post the link on your socials and hit the subscribe button now. The world needs more empathy, and you have an important role to play.